Welcome to my video, The Planets in the 8th House, Your Greatest Weakness. And we're going to talk a little bit about how 8th house people are phoenixes. So I wanted you to see my new mask. I think it's pretty cool. I found it online on Amazon for those of you that want to have a phoenix. As 8th house people, we are phoenixes, which means that we rise from the ashes and are reborn, a whole new person. And throughout our lives, many 8th house people experience emotional death, so to speak, where they feel like the person that they were has completely been changed. They don't even know who they are anymore because they're very different. And they have a whole new way of thinking and feeling and experiencing life. So it can be very painful, you know, when 8th house people go through these transformations, is what I call them. They self-transform, and that is why they are symbolic of the phoenix. 8th house people, I call them phoenixes, and they are people that go through a lot of challenges in their lives and a lot of difficult experiences, which everyone does, you know. And in astrology, let's be honest, everyone has something in their chart that is difficult. But when planets are in the 8th house, it's such a deep, transforming, mystical house. It's the house of healing. And so the phoenix bird is really about healing and allowing yourself to truly face all of the trauma and wounds that you have in your life and in your heart. And it could be from childhood, it could be from past relationships, heartache, it could be from work, friendships, losing people that you love, maybe loss through death, death of loved ones, things like that. So that's one of the reasons in my book, The Mysteries of the 8th Astrological House. If you haven't read it, it is on Amazon.com. It's Kindle version and paperback. I self-published this in 2010. A lot of people don't know about it. If you're in my groups, if you've been on some of my videos, you probably don't know unless you happen to watch my video about death and rebirth. But this is the book, and of course there's our mystical phoenix here to symbolize people with planets in the 8th house. And this is really a self-care journal that gives tips on forgiveness and all kinds of things that 8th house people need to do. But the reason I'm doing this video today is because something hit me recently. It made me think, and I thought, wow, I think this is really true for me. So, and it seems to be true for some other folks that I know that have shared with me. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 8th house and why it is often your greatest weakness. When you have planets in the 8th house, they're a challenge. So there's a reason they're there. We can call it karma. We can call it learning, growth, things that we have to experience, things that we have to go through to truly learn and be closer to ourselves and our soul. And as you know, the 8th house is hidden. So we talk about how the 8th house is very secretive and private and behind the scenes and mysterious and very deep. It also can be very dark. So, you know, when you think of the 8th house, you think of hidden things that are hidden deep within the dark waters. So they're not, you know, clear water that you can see the issues or the thoughts or the learning that you have. So for myself, I realized something that throughout the years, you know, I'm halfway through my life, I'm 45. It took me a long time to realize this. I think I wrote my first article about having planets in the 8th house when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. So I have really changed since then. And I look back and I don't even recognize the old Carmen, so to speak. I am so different now, and different in a good way. But sometimes I don't even recognize myself, you know, the way I feel, the way I react to different things now. is very different than how I emotionally reacted to things when I was younger, in my younger days. I'm much more serious. I'm much more practical, and a little bit jaded. I'll be honest, I'm a little cautious of trusting people now. And I always I can kind of see through people's true motives. And that's hard because I don't like doing that. I don't like doubting people and seeing that they're there just to use me, or they're only emailing me or talking to me because they want me to help them with something at work, or they just want to be able to say they know me, to use my energy or my friendships with others. So all kinds of things happen now that I'm like, that just doesn't feel right. And so I trust myself now, and I'll just be a little cautious. I'm still friendly and I still like to help people and all those things because I'm a 12th house sun as well, and Venus. So I can't get rid of my Pisces energy, but, and I'm a Virgo, but, all of the 8th house experiences that I've been through with my sun, with my moon and my Jupiter and my Chiron there, have really changed me. And I remember something when, someone said something to me that, what is your greatest weakness? And I really never thought I had a big weakness or anything like that. But now looking back, I realized that depending on what planets are in your 8th house, to me, I've figured out that this shows where you have your greatest weakness. And this greatest weakness, these are just some things I jotted down. The 8th house is where we're tested. We often have to come face to face with our shadow self, which is the part of ourselves we hide from ourselves and from other people. And we're not even aware of it because the 8th house is so deep and hidden that there's parts of ourself that we're not even aware of. And so what I find happens is when we have a major transit, when a planet moves through our 8th house in our transit chart, and if we have natal planets in that 8th house, they trigger it and they start bringing up issues that we have that we need to face and need to heal. So it's always important to see what transits are going on, and how they're impacting 8th house placements as well, because those are real transformative changes and times in your life that you're going to feel like a phoenix, because you're going to go through things, you're going to be tested. And so the one thing I feel like is that 8th house people are tested by their greatest weakness. And I want you to ask yourself, what do you think your greatest weakness is? And I have the moon there, and so I know that for me, it's my emotions, my emotional nature, but specifically the love I feel and the emotional connections that I feel with certain people in my past that were not healthy, or these people were not reciprocative, and they were not able to truly be giving and loving and have a true relationship with me, because they had their own issues and their own struggles and things like that. So I realized my moon there, one of my biggest weaknesses was my emotions, how I felt about people. And that's what got me in trouble. That's what got me hurt. And that's what got me wounded, was feeling things so deeply. And especially when 8th house people, when they feel a connection with someone that is beyond words, that is like an energy connection, past life, karmic connection. It's like, it's not all about physical attraction. It's just like something about that person. You feel like you've known them your whole life, and you just feel this bond. 8th house people are looking for a deep connection and a deep bond, but they often attract wounded people and people that are not capable of having a deep, loving, intimate, healthy relationship with you. So you attract the wrong types of people, and then there's where your greatest weakness comes in. So for me, it was a specific person that brought me a lot of pain. And for some reason, that person, when I think about my whole life, that person was my greatest weakness. Like, my life could be going well and everything's great, and that person could show up and completely pull the rug out from underneath me emotionally. And that's what my greatest learning was to finally heal and let go of that, because it was my greatest weakness. And one of my friends had said to me, you're being tested. I remember one of my friends, when I was going through a really hard time in my life, it was a long time ago, about 4 years ago, she said, they are your greatest weakness. And that the dark side knows, this is what she said, the dark side knows what your greatest weakness is, and it's using it against you. And it will, it's testing you. And so I feel like 8th house people we're tested. And your greatest weakness could be a person. It could be a behavior. It could be an emotional thing, how you deal with emotions, how you show love. It could be a family thing. Your greatest weakness could be someone in your family. It could be unhealed trauma, unhealed grief. Your greatest weakness. It could be work. It could be many different things that end up being something that can really hurt you. And if you don't know what your greatest weakness is, and you have 8th house planets, my advice is to start thinking about it. You may not know right away what your greatest weakness is, but eventually you will figure it out. And so some of my ideas, just real basic. We're not even going to get into each sun sign placement, and there's a lot more to the chart than just the house placements. But I always feel like the placement of the planets in the houses is so much stronger than the signs themselves. So when you have a lot of planets in one house, like the 8th house, that house energy is strong, and it overtakes, and it has a large effect on you, a big effect on you. I feel like the house is so much more powerful than the signs that the planets are in. And that's just from my research and what I believe. Every astrologer is different. So one of the things with the sun in the 8th house is that there's often your greatest weakness can be something that has to do with your identity. It could also have something that has to do with your father, or your father's side of the family, something from your father, maybe you inherited. Could be a personality trait, could be a behavior, could be addiction, could be anger. It could be all kinds of things. But I see that often when the sun is there, that your greatest weakness is something that affects your identity and who you are as a person, your main personality, okay? When the moon is there, like we talked about, I have the moon there, it often has to do with your emotional nature and how you react to things and how you feel and show emotions and allow yourself to give and open up your emotional vulnerabilities. So that is where the greatest wound can be. And something I realized, the moon represents the mother figure. So often there's some type of weakness, greatest weakness, or test that you go through that has to do with mothering, or your mother themselves, your relationship with your mother, or your mother's side of the family. Some type of transformative, painful thing that you might have to go through when the moon is there. Sorry, I'm having these pop-ups come up. When Venus is there, the love nature. So your greatest weakness has something to do with how you show and express love and the types of people that you're attracted to. When it's in the 8th house, it's a very, very deep placement. It makes Venus want that deep intimacy, that deep bond with someone. So that's where your greatest weakness could come through. Also, issues with self-esteem and appearance, okay, could be a weakness with Venus there. Then we look at Mercury, our mind, our thoughts. When it's in the 8th house, it could bring up obsession. Maybe your obsessive thoughts are always going, or anxiety, worry, or just negativity, just a really serious type of thinker. Those could be some of your weaknesses when Mercury's there. And also could be communication. Your weakness could be that you either find it difficult to express yourself through words or through writing, that you don't even know how to show or talk about how you feel because it's so deep. That could be your weakness. Or it could be that you trust people too easily, and you open up and talk and tell them your problems, tell them secrets about yourself, and then they go repeat it to everyone, and then you have a wound because you were betrayed. By opening up and sharing your thoughts, and how you feel with someone verbally. So that's Mercury. Mars there often is very powerful because Mars is the planet of aggression, drive, passion. When it's there, the wound could be through intimacy, through personality, um, behaviors, you either repressing your strong urges, and then exploding. It could be through many different issues that have to do with masculine energy, with Mars. And also it's also attraction, what types of people you feel sexually attracted to. And that's the eighth house as well. We're not going to get all into that this time, but anything with sex and death and intimacy and passion, that's all eighth house. So that's why a lot of eighth house people have wounds that have to do with intimacy and with sexuality and being vulnerable, body, mind, and soul, with another person. And then when you get hurt, it takes a lot to forgive and to heal and get over those things when you have planets in the eighth house. That's from my experience. So when we have Jupiter there, I have Jupiter there. I feel like Jupiter has been a blessing in the eighth house. I feel like it protects me from the more darker eighth house experiences. But I also realize there's another side to Jupiter. I always thought Jupiter's all about positivity and good luck, good fortune, blessings. Maybe I'll inherit money. Maybe, but what it is one of my greatest weaknesses too is that I'm very giving and I'm kind. And I always tell people, don't take my kindness as a weakness, and they do. I'm telling you, I always tell people, I always feel that way, like, gosh, man. And some people that know me well are like, Carmen, you're too nice. They're using you. And I still always try to see the good in people. And I still, even if they do, I may even know what they're doing, that they're just wanting something from me. But you know what? I'm still kind and I'm still friendly, but I'm more protected now because I've learned to have boundaries and protect myself and not just be so trusting. Okay. But I'm not going to let other people change who I am in my heart. And I don't want you to either, because you are a deep person. You are a healer. You are good at helping people with their problems. Just don't sacrifice yourself and your happiness and your energy for people that just want to take. Okay, you got to have a balance. Don't do that. And with Jupiter there, I find that people that makes you very giving. And you give of your energy, you give of your time, you give of your presence, and then you feel drained. You may give money, you loan people money, you give them the shirt off your back, right? You can't keep doing that all the time. There needs to be a reciprocation in relationships. So Jupiter there is good in a lot of ways. It's protective, it's positive, but it also can make you too open and too trusting and too giving and too generous, and too much so that you neglect your own needs and that people might start to take advantage of you. And that's what you don't want, okay, with Jupiter in the eighth house. Now, Saturn in the eighth house, I find that it's a very restrictive energy. Saturn there makes you a little bit afraid of the deep bond and intimacy of the eighth house. And it might make you repress your real nature, your giving, loving, deep, passionate nature, and you might just be very strict with yourself and very serious and rigid with your own self. And you might not let yourself have fun, and you might just be so negative about death and life and how bad the world is. You might get sucked into that realistic, practical Saturn energy, because it is the planet of realism, practicality, all of that stuff. But you also can, make money, work hard, but you also like to be in charge. So with Saturn, I find that sometimes your greatest weakness can be control. Saturn likes to control things and be in control and power of things. And that can be, when you try to control other people, that's when you can get in trouble. So watch for controlling behaviors when Saturn is in the eighth house. Now, Neptune in the eighth house. Neptune is very spiritual in the eighth house. It's very psychic. It's very open, and And there can be delusions, though. There could be escapist tendencies, okay, through alcohol, drugs, through sex, through intimacy. There could be a need to just escape from the heaviness of the eighth house. But it also can bless you with like amazing psychic experiences and deep dreams and a feeling that you want to help people, but you also can attract people that are not real stable, so, and that have a lot of wounds. So you're like a light that people are drawn to. So with Neptune there, you're very intuitive, artistic, creative type of energy, but you have to learn boundaries. So I find that people with Neptune in the eighth house often lack boundaries between themselves and others, and that could be one of your greatest weaknesses because you're wide open and you don't have a barrier, and so you absorb everybody's emotions and thoughts and feelings, and you can get depression. You could feel depressed and anxious and withdrawn, and your energy can get taken and kind of depleted if you don't have real strong boundaries with Neptune in the eighth. Now Uranus in the eighth, or Uranus is a very unexpected energy. You know, it hits out of the blue. It shakes you up. It changes you. So when Uranus is in the eighth house, I find that you're a person that goes through a lot of ups and downs of emotions, a lot of unexpected life changes, which can be hard because as human beings, we like stability. We like comfort. We like to feel in control. And Uranus does not like that. Uranus just blindsides you, knocks you up upside the head. You know, that's how I say it. Whenever you have a Uranus transit, I can feel it coming. And it's like this unsettling energy that is like unpredictable. And I hate that because I'm a Virgo. I have a lot of earth. So I like to know what's going to happen. Uranus always shocks you and knocks you out. I have Uranus has been transiting my eighth house for forever. Okay, like 8 years, and it's getting ready to leave soon, and I'm like, just get out of there. You know, I'm looking at my transit chart, just move, get into the ninth house, please, because I am so sick of it. So it's like these unexpected emotions and changes, and then I can feel it, you know, as it's transiting there. It hit my moon, my Jupiter, my Chiron. I went through all of that the past 3 years, and now I just feel like it still brings up stuff. You know, Uranus will bring up unhealed wounds. It'll bring up things that you thought you were over, and you'll have flashes about it. You'll have memories. You'll wait a minute, I thought I was over this. You'll listen to a song and you'll start crying. Okay, Uranus brings things up unexpectedly out of your emotional nature, and anything in the eighth house that you're hiding, Uranus is going to open it up and expose it, and it's going to be unexpectedly. That's what makes Uranus in the eighth house a little bit difficult. But you also can have flashes of knowledge and psychic experiences and wisdom, and are very you're probably attracted to people that are very different than you, very eccentric, and have a very different type of intimacy style, okay, than most people. More out of the box kind of person, you know, like not traditional, let's say that. So with Uranus there, you explore non-traditional intimacy, ways to love. You might have, you know, be polyamorous. You might have, you know, more than one relationship partner at one time. I mean, that's Uranus energy, okay? So all that kind of stuff. So your greatest weakness there could be that you always have these unexpected changes, and that you really crave stability, but your life is always kind of changing, and Uranus there really challenges you with that. And then Pluto, as we know, is like Pandora's box being opened. Anything that's hidden or secret, if that Pluto in the eighth house brings it out into your consciousness. So you are someone that is very perceptive. You see through the bull crap that people do. You're very deep. I would say you're very what's the word? My daughter has this placement. Kind of serious and cautious, and kind of not negative, but realist. So you know, anything, as soon as you meet someone as a Pluto in the eighth house person, you size them up. You see right through them to what their weaknesses are. So you see other people's weaknesses very well, but your own weaknesses tend to be hidden from you. And so other people can trigger that in you and bring them out. And then you feel exposed and vulnerable. And Pluto hates to feel vulnerable and exposed. Pluto wants to have total power and control over itself and its emotions. So you're good at seeing other people's weaknesses and bringing them out. And people are drawn to you, and they feel like you're a therapist, like you're naturally able to know what their wounds are. But make sure you also heal your own wounds and those things that you're hiding inside yourself, okay? So Pluto there is very powerful. I would say I've seen Pluto in the 8th. There can be a very secretive nature, like so secretive, and also, lack of trust. A lot of times I find that Pluto and 8th house people don't trust anyone. They're kind of loners. They rather kind of trust and rely on themselves because they never really fully trust other people 100%. Even when they know they love them and they've been there for them, they always have a fear of being totally vulnerable and dependent on anyone. And so Pluto there, that might be your greatest weakness. I don't know. But you can think about it and then make some comments. Let me know what you think your greatest weakness is. So one more thing I want to talk about, Chiron. Not really a planet, but I want to talk about it because it affects us, and I do believe that it is powerful in the chart. Chiron in the 8th, I have a video all about it. I want to make a new video about it, but I'm going to go ahead and touch on it here. My video about Chiron was a little negative, I'll be honest, because I have that placement, and I feel like it was hard, okay, with Chiron in the 8th. It still is hard, but the positive side of Chiron in the 8th that I know now is that it is such a healing placement. I can't even tell you, I feel like it really is the phoenix. Chiron in the 8th, you are a true phoenix. Same with Chiron, especially because you often are wounded by those you trust and love the most. And your greatest weakness is often giving your trust to someone that didn't deserve it. And so Chiron there, though, I always talk about you're the wounded healer, and I talk about that in my other video, but Chiron is really a blessing in the 8th house because it makes you a strong person. When you go through these experiences with Chiron in the 8th house, it changes who you are, and you become wise, and you become someone that can listen to other people's stories, and you can put yourself in their shoes because you have been through it. And that's why Chiron in the 8th house is such a powerful placement for healers. And you heal others because you have been through the same thing. You've walked the walk they have walked. So you make an excellent counselor and an excellent friend and a listening ear for people. So Chiron is not all negative. You will have a wound. You will feel that you need to heal something about yourself and at some time in your life, and figuring out what your greatest weakness is with Chiron. For me, it was taking on other people's pain, taking on other people's karma. And I remember a teacher I had years ago in the metaphysics school when I was taking classes. I was like 19. He told me, stop taking on other people's karma. That's not your karma, that's theirs. Stop taking on other people's problems. And I always would take them on like they were mine, and I wanted to help people. And that was a vicious cycle because I ended up getting hurt. And I ended up feeling like when I needed somebody, nobody was there for me. And that's what Chiron in the 8th house people often feel like they're always there for people that need them in their time of need. But when they need help, when they are struggling, they look around and they're alone. And that's the purpose of this placement is to heal yourself by yourself and be that healer, because healers heal everybody, but if you don't heal yourself, you can never heal anyone else. So that's the lesson of Chiron in the 8th house. So before I wrap up, this has been a longer video than I expected. What is your greatest weakness? Identify it. You might have more than one. Look at what planets you have in the 8th house. See how it relates. And I would love for you to post and share your thoughts about it. I'm doing research. I'm telling you, this just came to me in the night yesterday about my greatest weakness. It was a person. And I can tell you, sitting here right now, I'm done with that. But it took me years to truly heal that and to let go of that weakness and to know that that was only going to make my life worse. That person was always hurting me, never there for me. Pretty much wanted to use me. Let's be honest, had ulterior motive whenever they would come around. But I love that person. And I have moon in the 8th, so I had true love and care for that person. And I never saw the truth. I never believed that they were using me or they were manipulative or had narcissistic tendencies. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Never saw that. I just saw them on this pedestal because that was my greatest weakness. So I hope to hear from you. Please post in the comments. Please visit my website, www.8and12houses.com. I have a few books out on Amazon. Hope you like them, and I'll talk to you soon.